Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me well? I think so. It's a pleasure for me to be here at VMware Explorer. And after all the content that's already been shared, now we're going to address a topic that is very relevant, not only at VMware, but also in Brazil. We're going to talk about diversity and inclusion, and this session will focus on that. And today I'm going to share the stage with my friend Luciano Gomez. For those who don't know me, I am Mayara Freire, Strategic Accounts Manager at VMware.
My microphone. Now it's working. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. We're going to talk about a topic that might be sensitive, but it's not problematic. I'm a senior solutions engineer at VMware. My colleague introduced me as a technical account manager, but that was my previous position. I was just promoted, so I'm doubly happy. My friend Alcy, who came all the way from Rio, especially for this session, I'm really happy. Well, honestly, the participation of black people in IT is quite low. And when I say that we need to discuss this topic, we're not here just to talk about problems, right? Here we're going to thoroughly discuss potential solutions and viable paths we can thoughtfully consider and actively pursue to at least genuinely try to significantly improve this challenging situation, right?
VMware addresses various diversity and inclusion topics around the world. Here in Brazil, our focus is on Black issues. POD stands for Power of Difference, or the profound power of difference. In these insightful PODs, we usually address these important topics in a very lighthearted and engaging way, thoughtfully discussing how we can effectively change our work environment, how we can genuinely grow together, how we can truly transform the environment we live in, and how we can actively foster professional growth and development for Black youth in this specific case. Just to share a statistic, recently IBGE showed that more than half of the Brazilian population is Black or mixed race, but the IT market does not reflect this distribution. In fact, less than 15% of IT leadership positions are held by Black or mixed race individuals, a reality that repeats itself in various proportions throughout the hierarchy. So what we're going to discuss here today with our guests is how to build the foundations to change this scenario.
Exactly, Maya. Because we know that the inclusion of Black people is a topic encouraged by some IT companies, but it hasn't necessarily resulted in real change. And this panel will not discuss the problems, as I mentioned, but rather the achievements of Black men and women in IT. But we will also analyze some challenges that need to be faced within this field. And I think we can already start inviting our guests, who will help enrich this panel today. So it is with great pleasure that I invite to the stage Almi Silva, Vice President of Salesforce in Brazil.
I'd also like to invite the Director of Infrastructure and Cloud at Accenture Brazil, who is also a sponsor of the Committee for Racial Inclusion and Equity. Welcome, Wilson Marcones. Thank you, Felipe.
Finally, it is an honor to invite to join us someone who is a dancer, choreographer, poet, musician, music producer, educator, and practically the father of hip-hop in Brazil. Come here. Nelson. Triumph.
Well, let's start with our questions, a chat, right? Almir, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks. Nice to meet you, Nelson. Starting with Wilson, with Almir. Almir, I would like you to tell us a little about your professional trajectory, how you witnessed different moments in IT. How do you feel as a black professional reaching a high position? What has improved, what has gotten worse, and what remains the same in the IT market for black professionals? I'd like you to share a little bit about your journey with us.
Thank you, Mayara. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you to take part in this panel with 5 black people discussing a topic that needs to be brought to the table. Starting a bit with my story, I just turned 50 years old and I reflected on the fact that I've been in the information technology field for 35 years. I started when I was 15 and it was really interesting because I began with a computer course, taking that basic class just to understand things. And from there, I decided to really get into the IT field. I thought, no, this is for me. I think it's cool. It's an opportunity for me to grow. And I went through benefits. For example, I got into high school. I studied data processing with a scholarship, which gave me that initial support to get to know and deepen my knowledge. And at that moment, I decided to go to college. I studied systems analysis in college, but I also had to seek help due to lack of funds because my family lived on the outskirts near Campolim. My father had 6 children and needed to find a way to be able to pay for this college. So I turned to a bank loan, which helped me a lot. But at the same time that you get this support, the responsibility comes back because I'm taking out a loan to go to college to gain knowledge. But in the end, after college, I'll have to pay that money back. So you start to worry. So I spent all 5 years of college worried. How am I going to pay off this debt? Will my name end up on the credit blacklist? Who knows, right? And it was interesting because later on, life brings you opportunities that you really have to embrace. So opportunities started coming my way, like getting into interesting companies, information technology. I started to realize, wow, I need to learn more to really become a quality professional. So I studied a lot. So this habit of always learning is something I've had for a long time because opportunities will show up right in front of you. But there are 2 points, 2 perspectives here. First, I need to be prepared because it's no use seeking opportunities if we don't present ourselves in a structured way to be able to compete. And the second point is, well, where do I want to be? So I think what's missing a bit for us, especially for black people from the outskirts, is that sometimes we lack visibility, sometimes we don't have someone to support us, to guide us, to be a mentor. Go this way, go that way. So we end up figuring everything out through trial and error. I think the first step in this story of how I am in my journey was to understand where I am, what is the gap I need to develop in order to be well positioned, and to seek out opportunities because they are available in the market. Along this path of growth, today I see, as an executive at Salesforce, that we have been developing programs to bring people in to compete. But sometimes you get to the selection process, to the talent pool, to figure out which candidate to place in which position, and black people just don't show up. Then you start to go back and retrace your steps. Why don't they show up? Is it a lack of opportunity, a lack of awareness, or is it because we're not looking for and bringing these people in to compete? Sometimes, yes, it's a combination of all these factors. Nowadays, we've seen that there are qualified people out there, but they just haven't had the opportunity. So sometimes you really have to go out and find these people to bring them into these internal competitions. That's the first point. Second point, human development, acquiring knowledge, it's available. Today, everyone has a cell phone and knowledge is on the internet. But it's no use having, for example, access to information if I don't really know where to go. So I need to have, in a way, some structure to the path. And today there are institutions that provide this. For example, New School is it's an NGO in the East Zone run by my friend João Paulo, who started developing an app along with knowledge resources. And it brings this structured accessibility with clinical knowledge sessions to the outskirts. And then you might ask, well, why can't we do more of this kind of model? We can, yes, as long as we are able to structure a program and have the proper support from corporations and organizations to be able to develop it. I'm not sure how much time I have left here, folks. If you let me, I'll just keep talking, okay?
Time's up. Wilson, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for the book. I really liked it. You also hold an executive position at Accenture. I'd also like you to talk a bit about your journey, what it was like to reach top management. Do you feel that your journey serves or has served as an example for other professionals?
Or is it an example for other professionals?
Well, actually, then so.
Thank you. First, I would like to thank VMware for the invitation. I think this is the first global VMware event to be organized in São Paulo. So thank you very, very much indeed for everything. It truly is an immense honor and a great privilege to be here. And I would like to congratulate VMware for including a diversity panel in an event of this caliber. I know that you are not just a technology partner at Accenture, but also a partner in the fight against racism, which is a cause that is very dear to us. Now, to talk a bit about my story, it's funny, when you look at black people, their stories are often very similar.
I am originally from the vibrant and bustling city of Rio de Janeiro, a place known for its stunning landscapes and rich culture. I am currently 44 years old, having experienced many decades of life. My birthplace was in the neighborhood of Vila Isabel, which is widely recognized as a humble and economically disadvantaged area. I spent my formative early years, specifically my childhood and adolescence, living and growing up in that particular neighborhood. I pursued my college degree, focused on technology, took my computer courses, and got my certifications. Everyone who starts in technology, especially in IT, goes after technical certifications. I didn't do VMware at the time, but I did some others. And I joined Accenture in 2004. At Accenture back then, the main focus was a technology company, obviously, but focused on large systems, major system implementations to handle infrastructure topics that, until then, were still somewhat new to the company. I think that when I joined Accenture, there were about 20 infrastructure guys. I was one of those 20, and I was sure that once the project I was on ended, someone would turn to me and say, "Thank you, great contribution, you can go now." And a few years went by, we developed our infrastructure practice, and today cloud infrastructure is everywhere. The whole market talks about cloud, about infrastructure, and I witnessed this entire journey happen at Accenture. And I don't know if it was just because of competence, but I think it was also due to luck. Opportunities for career growth started to appear for me. I started as an analyst. A junior, I was basically a technician. And I was promoted. I joined in 2004 and was promoted to manager in 2009. My first executive promotion at Accenture. By then, I was already managing some clients and a few people. And at that moment, already tying in with the second part of your question, I started to realize that being a leader, especially for me, as one of the very few black executives at Accenture, maybe even the only one at the time, at that moment, was essential to inspire and motivate others to follow the same path. So this process just happened naturally. Today, I am the director of the cloud and infrastructure practice. And in 2020, everyone followed the news about the death of George Floyd in the United States. There was a global outcry about the issue of racism. The death of George Floyd was just one more among many others that happen every day. Before 2020 now anyway, it's nothing new for those who experience racism firsthand. But it happened in the United States, and there was a huge outcry all over the world. And at Accenture, it was no different. Our global CEO, Julie Sweet, took a very strong stance in the United States, positioning Accenture as an anti-racist company and calling on all regions to do something that would bring about change. The reality you described about the black population versus society versus what happens inside companies. And then our president here for the Latin America region invited me to take our racial program off the drawing board, because up until then we didn't have a racial program within our diversity pillar. And it was funny when I got this invitation. I think I've already told Luciano this, right? I asked myself why Framil had specifically picked up his phone, then proceeded to call me, and subsequently invited me to join him, to be the sponsor of our racial program. Why? Why Wilson? And the answer came to me very quickly. Because there was only me. I was the only one, or maybe one of the very few more senior executives at the company who has actually experienced racism firsthand and who would at least have the willingness and the ability to bring this program to life. Obviously, there was a feeling of loneliness at first, but what happened next was that many people from the company, from Accenture, came forward. They offered to help. Many other black people showed up, people I didn't even know existed at Accenture. We managed to form a committee, just like you did here with Black. People started to show up, rising from the ashes, so to speak, and saying, hey, man, I want to contribute, I want to make a difference. And then, I think, as Elsie mentioned, there are challenges when it comes to including black people in the job market, especially in tech companies, high-performance companies like VMware, Salesforce, and Accenture. It's always very difficult to open doors and, above all, to ensure that these people advance in their careers within these highly competitive companies. So, our mission here today is just that, to create opportunities and an environment that fosters the emergence of others. Other Wilsons, other Alcis, other Lucianos, other people, other leaders who represent the black population.
Is it over to you, Nelson? So, when you started your career here in São Paulo, black culture and dance itself were rejected by society. And it was very common for the police to come down hard on you all. My question is, today hip-hop moves the masses, there's a huge market around all of this. I wanted to ask you, what motivated you and what still motivates you to keep moving forward with everything you've been developing? So, yeah, no, they'll call, you don't need to touch it, no. Go ahead, you can speak. No, don't touch it. Microphone.
One, two. Actually, when I arrived in São Paulo, I was already coming from other movements and was involved in the Black Hill movement and everything. And the dances in the clubs became really strong with Tony Tornado, Gomez Brown, Tim Maya, George Bencho, all those people. And I was that kid who hyped up the clubs and would go to Rio and do all that stuff. At that time, I was already working throughout Brazil. But I had other jobs before, to study and also to work. But when I arrived in São Paulo in '77, I said, I'm going to live only from dance. It was kind of strange because it was really discriminated against, especially black dances, dances by black people in the street. It was really complicated, it was tough. And I was the guy who got arrested the most in São Paulo. I was dancing downtown. And I would tell the men there that what I was doing was art, that it was culture, and they would say, no, to us, that's just loitering, that's being a bum. There was even this guy, a police chief in Bexiga, who whenever he saw me would say, you again? And I'd say, sir, I don't like coming here, it's the cops who bring me. And he would say, go, 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 go. And because of that, it wasn't easy. No, man, because it wasn't considered a profession, dancing. And thank God, with my stubbornness, with this struggle, I managed to turn it into show art and everything else. And today we have hundreds, thousands of young people who dance. And in Cyrella, black music, together with hip hop, we were lucky to have 4 elements: graffiti, the DJ, the MC, the dancer, both male and female. And that gave the kids a lot of options. Most of them were Afro descendants, and they were from the outskirts without many opportunities or resources. And because of that, I thought it was a great way out. And the struggle continues to this day.
That's right.
Nelson, and in this struggle, you're an educator, you're a poet. We like to emphasize that, right, Luciano? Where did you see that? At what point did you decide, I'm going to help the communities I pass through to transform this dance, this knowledge, this culture into art, into a profession? I'm going to help develop this community, these children. I'm going to bring something good for them to absorb so they can grow, empower themselves, and move forward. Where did that idea come from?
It's just that I already had a very formal thing, like I enjoyed being in schools, wanting to show my work inside them. And with that, these showcases that we started doing inside schools, we began to create multipliers. People who wanted to know where we taught many young black people who often had no other options. It was really either dance or play soccer or do some other kind of thing. And when they got there, all of a sudden, they were really good, already starting to do different moves. And they started being applauded for that, something that in the neighborhood they were only rejected for, even by their own peers. There's that thing they call at school, what's it called? Bullying. Yeah, I like bullying, right? Just depressing. And with that, the guys started dancing, earning a bit of money, buying good sneakers, nice clothes, and most importantly, starting to study. Because what was my big wish? It was that besides dancing, they would understand the importance of music, and that dance wasn't just some random thing. It had timing, it was mathematics, and they needed to study that. And with that, it was really cool because, for example, back then we talked about hip hop, that the guys were from the favela, that they came from the hood, that they were poor, you know, that kind of thing. Today, I can proudly say, yes, we have hoods, we have favelas, but little by little, we also have world champions. We already have engineers, we already have doctors, black kids who used to be out on the streets, not in school, and today they speak 10 languages. Do you get it? So Afro people, they're very connected to dance, to soccer, to music. And through dance, in a way, I guided them toward education, which I believe is the best way to change a country.
Very good, very good. Wilson, it's your turn now, my brother. You're the sponsor of the Committee for Inclusion and Racial Equity over at Accenture. Where are the biggest barriers for the kind of work you do there? The difficulties lie in recruiting people and in changing the culture. In your opinion, what are the main factors that make inclusion and racial equity difficult in companies?
Look, Luciano, I think that without a doubt, it absolutely starts with fundamentally changing the culture. A topic like this should catch the attention and spark the interest of the entire company. We're talking about people. We're talking about talent. We're talking about a market that is highly demanding of professionals and with a rather limited supply of talent. So it should be strategic. It should be a top priority on the agenda because the issue isn't skin color. The issue isn't race. The issue is developing talent and creating opportunities for everyone. Starting from this first major problem, which I believe is cultural, then there are the operational problems. That's where recruitment and selection come in.
No one shows up.
I'm not sure if it's just that no one shows up, but we've been saying that the recruitment and selection algorithms naturally filter out black people. When job postings require fluent English for a position where the person won't necessarily use English from day one, by doing this, they're excluding a young black person who didn't have the opportunity to take language courses, to study at a school, and develop a second language. When they set requirements for top-tier universities, many people say the candidate has to come from a top university. But what is a top-tier university? So, does that mean someone who studied at a so-called non-top university isn't qualified for that position? I studied at a university that isn't considered top tier. And today I hold an important position within the company. I've managed to deliver significant results for the company over this time. I didn't get to the position I'm in today by chance. I delivered results, and it wasn't because of my university. And I didn't speak fluent English when I joined Accenture. I developed my English skills within Accenture. So hiring algorithms end up pushing candidates away. And black people start to see that that company isn't for them. I'm not going to apply for a job at Accenture, for example, because, damn, just imagine me joining Accenture.
That's true.
It would be really hard. So I think the candidate-job relationship has a problem that's not with the candidate. The problem lies with those who are recruiting. This is one of the first problems we need to fix in large corporations. It's about creating opportunities to recruit more and more black talent. And from there, once the door is open, the entryway is open, and eventually you might bring in someone who has some knowledge gaps. The focus should be on developing these people. It's not enough to just open the door and say, now come in and prove yourself, right? We have to provide the tools that potentially these people didn't have the opportunity or privilege to access in order to develop themselves. So it starts with culture, moves on to recruitment, and then I think it ends with promoting the development of our people.
Based on what you just said, Wilson, my question now goes to Nelson. Nelson is an educator working in the outskirts, and we see that there is a lot of folklorization of black people. They're seen as football players, samba musicians, business owners in the periphery, but not as directors, not as central figures, not occupying high positions in big companies. That's something that rarely happens. It's still rare. So I ask you, Nelson, how can we change the foundations of education? What is missing so that these children in the outskirts can have the right and access? We already know that language skills, which are always required by big companies, are a barrier. Education itself is often lacking in the outskirts. And yesterday you told a really great story that your programs about art always came up in Gay P because of the lack of a math teacher, a Portuguese teacher in the outskirts. And I wanted you to tell me what's missing, what can still be done to change things and give these young people power for their growth. In what ways can we as a community help as well?
First of all, the first part, when you asked about it being kind of folklore, to me, I don't see it that way. Folklore. Actually, it was a real event. Pelé being the first guy to become the great figure in football, and Tim Maya being the great figure in singing. So what happened with them? They became references. What our young people from the outskirts need are references. If a guy shows up with a tricked out motorcycle, looking cool, getting all the girls, everyone will want to ride a motorcycle too. They're references. If we have a guy who stood out in basketball or stood out somewhere else, or a b-boy who won a world championship, we'll have a lot of young people from the outskirts wanting to follow that same path. What we need are references. Now, how can these references be brought to light? We can't just throw them into take these talents and toss them in the trash. We have to give them opportunities to show what they know. For example, schools today have an outdated teaching method that still wants to teach kids A, E, O, U while they're on their phones talking to people from Japan, you know?